I am former Justice Richard Sanders, and I am trying to get my government job back. And I'd like to give you a couple of reasons why you might want to make that come about. I'm running for an open seat created by the retirement or pending retirement of Justice Tom Chambers. Justice Chambers has endorsed me to take his position. As you may know, I served on the Washington State Supreme Court for 15 years, only to be narrowly defeated a couple of years ago. The two other gentlemen in the race come from an extremely partisan background. Judge Bruce Hillier from the King County Superior Court ran as a Liberal Democrat twice for King County Executive, lost twice before he was appointed to his judicial position. John Ladenburg last ran for Attorney General against Rob McKenna, lost. Then he was in doubt whether to run for that office again or for the Supreme Court. He decided to run for the Supreme Court. So all in all, they've run for 8 partisan offices and lost 4 times before seeking a position on the court. I'm different because I think the courts are different. I've only run for the judiciary. Only the judiciary is there to protect the rights of the private citizen, not only against other private citizens, but against the government itself, against the executive and the legislative branch, the same branches that those individuals seem to have their first love for. So I think it's important that we understand what the stakes are in this election, and that is the courts are there to protect and preserve individual rights, or they're there to serve the interest of the government, and that really is the choice that the people of this state are going to be making. Now, the Washington Constitution says something that the United States Constitution doesn't say. It tells us what the purpose of government is. The U.S. Constitution doesn't. The Washington Constitution says the purpose of government is to protect and maintain individual rights. It's not to protect the government, it's not to protect big government, it's not to protect governmental officials. It's there to protect and maintain individual rights, and that's exactly what I did for those 15 years on the court. I heard over 1,700 cases, wrote over 600 opinions, and in every one of those I stood up for the rights of the private citizen. You know, a couple of months ago, Channel 13 ran a news story about my race. They said, this Justice Sanders guy, he's a controversial figure, he has controversial views. So I thought I'd give you a few of my more controversial views. I'm a defender not only of the right to own property, but to actually use it. In one majority opinion that I wrote when I was on the state Supreme Court, we held Spokane City Council members personally and individually liable for damages and attorney fees due to a property owner whom they arbitrarily interfered with his right to develop his property. Maybe that and other cases of that kind explain why the Association of Washington Business, the Rental Housing Association, the Farm Bureau, the Washington State Realtors, the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, the Association of General Contractors, and others have endorsed my candidacy. In another opinion, I held that the Second Amendment applies to the states. This was the first state court opinion, the first opinion anywhere in the United States that squarely held this, and the United States Supreme Court, I like to think, followed our lead a couple of months later. So there's good reasons why the Gun Owners Action League and the NRA has endorsed my candidacy. And I know that religious liberty is a priority for you. It was for me too. Did you know that Clark County established against establishing a church as a matter of right in every one of its zones? That's right, you could build a house, you could build a factory, you could build a porno theater as a matter of right, but you needed to get special permission to build a church. The Washington State Constitution, in my view, clearly prohibited this practice. And I fought for the rights of the Open Door Baptist Church, but the church lost and had to close its doors forever, and I wrote the dissenting opinion. You know, we've heard about, Stephen Pidgeon talked about establishment of religion. There was a rally on the federal courthouse steps in March about the Affordable Care Act and its potential infringement on religious liberty, and I was asked to give one of the speeches. And I talked about the establishment of religion. And I talked about a case out of Snohomish County that went to the U.S. Court of Appeals. And in that case, there was an ensemble of high school students. I believe it was a wind ensemble. And they were playing at their graduation ceremony. And by tradition, they could select any music they wanted to play. So they selected an instrumental version of Ave Maria. And the school authorities said, no, you can't play that. That'll be an establishment of religion. So they sued the school district with the help of the ACLU, went all the way up to the U.S. Court of Appeals, which held, yes, the school authorities were within their rights to stop the freedom of these students to play a piece, an instrumental piece. And I reflected to the people at that rally what the establishment of religion is all about. The Founding Fathers knew very well what an establishment of religion is. They had established them. In almost every colony, there was an established religion. That means it's the official religion of the state, and you pay taxes to support it. That's an established religion. And why do we have the First Amendment, which prohibits the federal government from passing any law with respect to the establishment of religion? It's because they didn't want the federal government interfering with the state establishments of religion. But now it's completely upside down, and the clause is being used by unthinking individuals who are not rooted in history to try to drive religion from the public square. You know, we had a challenge to the Defense of Marriage Act, and it was narrowly upheld 5-4. I was the 5th vote to uphold that. I've been endorsed by the Human Life PAC. All my other opponents in this race have been endorsed by the National Abortion Rights Action League. So I think there's a difference in this election, a difference that you can make and you should make by doing something, telling your neighbors, telling your family, telling your friends what this race is all about. I fought for the taxpayer. You know, I was invited to a tax seminar, and the lawyer who introduced me was a baseball fan. And he said, you know, Ichiro is doing really well. He's batting over 300. But this Justice Sanders, he was off the chart because he stood by the side of the taxpayer more than 80% of the time. And I fought for the people's constitutional right of initiative and referendum. I wrote in dissent that the Mariner Stadium tax was not a public emergency exempt from referendum, but rather that one was subject to referendum. The court recently held 5-4 that you have no right in a locality to subject a local red light camera ordinance to a referendum. Well, I can tell you, if I were on the court, it also would have been 5-4, but the other way around. So at every turn, I face the claim that government is somehow special and we should presume it is right when it is really wrong, presume it is right when it is violating the rights of private citizens. I never bought it. I always fought it. I had a record number of dissents because I believe in principle, not accommodation. So there's some literature on my table. I have a few signs. If any of you would like to take it, they're here for you. I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes after this little talk. I appreciate and honor the opportunity to be with you here tonight. Good luck in all your endeavors.